Hey everybody, welcome to YWAM Denver Live. How are you? Hope you're doing well, staying safe. And we're going to be doing this every weekday at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Thanks for joining us tonight on Tuesday, May 5th. I'm here with my daughter Jessica. So I'm Peter Warren, and my wife Linda and I started YWAM Denver many years ago. We have 3 adult children who are married, and our youngest is Jessica, and I invited her to come with me and share some stories from the road, outreach stories. She's always been someone who has had an adventurous spirit, and when she got out of high school, she went to live in the Amazon, and she has been involved with her husband in putting clean water filters in for a Maya village in southern Mexico. But her real passion is for the continent of Africa, and she's been over there many times. She's been arrested, thrown out of one particular country that will remain nameless, and just had amazing experiences of God's provision and healing, and wanted to talk about that tonight. So, Jess, just share whatever from your heart. I invited her a few days ago to come and share.
All right. Well, so when we first got off the phone talking about just sharing on Facebook Live about some experiences, I had thought I would share about our time in Mexico a couple years ago. My husband and I moved down with our 2 kids and a few people on a team to start a ministry down there. But after we got off the phone, I just opened my Facebook app and was going to just scroll, and the first thing that comes up, you know, when you open Facebook for the first time each day, is your memories of that day. And this time of year, I always have so many memories from my times in Africa, because we would usually go off of our winter schools, so we would be there in the spring. And so every single day almost, it's like all these really cool memories. And I love that about social media, that it just reminds you of awesome past experiences. Anyway, so I opened my Facebook app, and the first thing that popped up was this status update from, I think it was 2011, that said, we went back to the children's ward today and there were no more kids there because they all went home. And I just felt like I wanted to share about some really life-changing experiences. And this one particularly was from an outreach in Mozambique, the first outreach I ever led by myself. And it was a big team, 28 people. And we went to South Africa and Mozambique, and we were serving with an amazing ministry there that just had seen so much breakthrough happen in Mozambique over the last 20 years. And, you know, when you're in places where there's heavy poverty, the type of ministry is a lot of times meeting people's practical needs and going into hospitals and praying with people, because the hospitals actually don't have a lot to offer people. Clean water sometimes, and a few basic things like penicillin. But other than that, there's not a ton that they can offer always. And so we would go in and just like pray for people. And that day, or the day before this, we had gone into the children's ward of the hospital and just sat with parents and listened to their stories and prayed for their children. And then the next day when we went back, like my status had said, we went back and there were no kids left, because they had all gone home because they had all been healed. And just seeing God just come through in such a practical way for them. And many of those kids were suffering from extreme complications. It wasn't just like, you know, a little thing here, a little thing there. A really common reason that kids are in the hospital in lots of places in Africa are because they have burns all over their body, because everyone cooks over fire. And so it takes months and months and months to treat those wounds, and to have them wake up the next day and their wounds be healed is just a pretty incredible experience.
Wow.
On that outreach, we saw 60 people get healed miraculously. Absolutely just the love of God coming through in a practical way for people.
Well,
And
I've never seen that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen people get healed, but I've never seen everybody get healed. And I
That's
mean,
incredible.
does that happen most of the time? I mean,
I don't know.
when you're doing outreach?
That's the only outreach I've been on where that was the experience. We had also an amazing number of people have just incredible revelation and actually come to the Lord and get saved, and that is as amazing as well. And I remember on Easter morning, we were there, and our contact said, we're gonna have this church service all night long, and we're gonna go and take our van to the villages and bring people in, because we're gonna be serving food, and it's a place where they can come together. And most of those people don't know Jesus, so this is an amazing opportunity for people to get saved. And so that night we had this huge dinner with these huge pots of rice and fish and cassava, and we did dramas and different people spoke, and we did puppets and just had a lot of fun all night, and then just amazing worship all night long. And he said in the morning, at 4 a.m, we're gonna leave this place and we're gonna walk to this river, and we're gonna baptize everyone who's been saved on Easter morning while the sun is rising.
Wow.
And so my students, were really excited to participate in that. And as soon as we got there, they all were in the water, and we had, I don't know how many people, maybe 100 people that were ready to get baptized. And my students are in the water, and I remember the pastor praying, and I understood a little bit of what he said because I understood a little bit of Portuguese, but no one else on my team spoke Portuguese. And he was just praying as we were starting welcoming the Holy Spirit, and praying that he would protect us from anything that was in the water. And all my students were already in the water, ready to baptize people, and
Crocodiles and
snakes and whatever else, I don't know, could have been in those African rivers. But it was a pretty big adrenaline rush in that moment, to just have to put that out of my head, and okay, we're gonna just baptize people. So I was kind of standing on the sideline, because as the leader, my job is to create these ministry experiences for my students. And our contact came to me and said, well, what I need you to do is to take this towel and to just dry the faces of the women after they're baptized. And to this day, that is really one of the truest experiences of Easter morning that I've ever had, of just wiping the faces of these beautiful African women after they're coming out of the water, being baptized on Easter morning as the sun is rising. That outreach experience was absolutely life-changing for me. But when I was thinking about what I wanted to share with you, I was also reminded of another outreach I took about 2 years after that, which was to Liberia, which is in Western Africa. And this was in 2012. And so they had been out of civil war for, maybe, when did the war end there? I don't know. Maybe.
Just because Liberia is where Charles Taylor, and they went into Sierra Leone. He was the strong man, and because of the blood diamonds, and that originated in northern Liberia.
Yeah, so it was a civil war between the rebels in Liberia and Sierra Leone, and anyway, a really, really devastating war. And so when we went there, I had actually never been to a nation before that had no running water and no electricity. The Monrovia airport runs off of generators. So talk about a very different experience, and much more desperate than anywhere I had ever been. We went out into this village 12 hours away from the city, and we went there to start a preschool so that we could help them to educate children so that they could get into primary school and help some moms out, and also just really set that curriculum into place. And so we, every day, we're just like teaching these kids and interacting with these kids, and then in the afternoon we would go to the hospital. That's what we would do, and we would be with people, and we would pray for people. And
Healings again?
no healings, not even one healing this time. And we were in the hospital more this time, I felt like, because this time I only had 6 people on my team, and so we all had so many more opportunities, and we saw children die like in front of their moms, and I sat with moms begging me to just pray for their child, that God would heal their child, and it didn't happen. And that was really really hard to experience, because I think that all of us have certain expectations of what God is going to do based on what he's done in the past. But I think that what I took away from that experience in Liberia that was so difficult was that so many times we go into our relationship with God and our experience with God expecting him to do a certain thing instead of expecting him just to be who he is. And when I remember asking God, like, why did we even go there? It wasn't that a bad representation of you that we went and prayed for people and nothing happened? And he spoke to me so clearly and said, I didn't take you there actually to heal anybody. I took you there because I wanted to let you into my brokenness. I wanted you to see what I see so that you would understand me. And I just felt like so loved by God and so privileged by God that he would let me into that place, because God doesn't hide himself from that mom who's watching her child die. He's there with her, and he experiences that. And just like when we go through something hard, we want fellowship with people. We want people to understand what we're going through. That's why there's like so many support groups for different things. And it was almost like I felt like the God of the universe had let me into that support group, into his place of understanding so that I would understand his heart. And I think that in this time of just, in this time of not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow, not knowing where this virus came from, or when we're going to be able to go to the zoo again, or when we're going to be able to do normal things like have birthday parties and have gatherings, and even for YWAM bases around the world. When are we going to be able to run schools again? We don't know. But instead of going into it saying, well, God is this way and he's going to do this thing, maybe we should go into it and just ask him, where are you in this? And what are you going to do in this? Because God doesn't always do the same thing in every situation. And I think that sometimes we can embitter our hearts because we want God to be a certain way. And I think that that's just been encouraging for me, because as a mom of 3 kids and our whole life really changing and feeling like I'm sort of grieving, my kids going to school every day and having that normalcy and being with their friends, it's just a really hard time to figure things out and explain things to your kids. But I think that sometimes letting go of those expectations and just focusing on the goodness of God is what we really need to do, and to just listen to him. What are you doing right now?
Yeah. One of the things that God spoke to me a few weeks ago is from Philippians chapter 4, verse 6 and 7, that really gives us kind of a roadmap of what we need to do in times like this. And it says, don't be anxious or don't worry. Pray about everything and remember the good things God has done. And if you do this, then the peace of God will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. And I think of the Jewish people and the nation of Israel throughout history. They had a calendar where they would always remember the good things God had done. Mm-hmm. And I know you and Kyle do that, and that you've shared this with me, that helps you to cope and to walk through this. Mm-hmm. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so when our oldest daughter was a baby, we were kind of trying to figure out how we were gonna set the tone for our family in the future. Like, now is the time. We're now a family. What do we want our family to look like? And so we decided to start celebrating Shabbat every week, which is basically just the Jewish celebration of Sabbath. Each Friday night, as the sun goes down, making that a holy space where we give thanks for everything that God has done for us, and we remember his goodness, and we bless our children, and we break bread, and we light candles, and we have fellowship. And I think that having that consistency of something that we're doing every week, and for every family that can look different. We're not Jewish, we're Christian, but we felt like having connecting with Jesus in that way, because Jesus celebrated Shabbat every week because he was Jewish, and connecting in that way with that beautiful picture of rest and Thanksgiving was just something we needed to do to ground our family, and it really has been good. And I think that also just, it's created an amazing community for us, and our kids know, and they look forward to it each week, and they really look forward to the challah bread every week. That's like their favorite part, and having friends. Usually we have friends over, not as many friends anymore right now, but so.
Wow. Well, that's incredible, huh? Isn't that amazing? I mean, I think God, because he's the living God, he's not just someone we believe in, right? We know him because he's alive, and he speaks to us. And regardless of the situation that we're in, God is going to speak to us at that moment and minister to us, and his grace is sufficient for those times. And so I think that's part of the encouragement, is to listen to him and to pace ourselves during this time. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else you kind of feel on your heart you'd like to share? Thank you so much, Jess. This is so powerful tonight. Yeah.
I think as I was just preparing to share with people who, this goes out all over Facebook, so I don't know if it's going to be more current staff or past staff or people who are wanting to be involved in YWAM in the future. But if you are someone who was looking forward to a DTS or a secondary school, and now those doors are closed, or even if it's not YWAM, even if you're wanting to travel and to kind of have those frontier missions experiences where you want to help others and you can't right now, not to lose sight of those dreams, because the world is going to come out of this in a really different place, and I don't even know what that is going to be. None of us know what that's going to be, but there's always a need for more people in missions. And I think sometimes it's like, oh, is that just sort of a thing I wanted to do to fill my time and now I can't do it? But really, I'm so thankful that I was able to have those experiences when I was. And so if that's something that you're thinking of and you've been discouraged because of the lack of ability to travel or be in YWAM or whatever it is in missions right now, that there will be a time, and not to lose heart in that there will be a time, and there will be so much work to do when this is done. I don't know, is it ever going to be done? I don't know what's going to happen, but yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Okay, so just a reminder, every weekday, 7 p.m. for about 20, 25 minutes, we want to bring a word of challenge and just to be able to kind of share what we're going through at YWAM Denver. And tomorrow, I want to share with you, I wrote a book about God and suffering. Where is God when we suffer? And one of the chapters I talk about disease, and I talk about how things went wrong and why do we have this in the world? And it affects good people, not just bad people. I mean, people say, but if God was truly just, bad things would only happen to bad people. Well, no, that's not the way it is. And so not only how do we cope with this, but where did this begin? And I want to base this in the Bible. The Apostle Peter tells us, always be ready to give to everyone who asks you a defense for the hope that's in you. And so I want to kind of unpack that tomorrow, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Then Thursday, we've got a couple of people who are going to be sharing. Friday again, and then we're going to keep on doing this for the foreseeable future. We'd love for you to join us. If there's anyone else that you feel like, man, you would really be enriched and nourished by this, have them tune in. Okay, so bless you. Have a wonderful evening.